Bandai Namco has confirmed that it's making the live action Gundam movie, and we got something that you usually don't get with production announcements. Is they released the first poster for it, which usually is not something that happens until a movie is much further along in its like marketing cycle. But it's like the outside of like the Earth from space. You can see like the silhouette of Earth and then the darkness of space, and there's like a little beam of light or flames just kind of moving in like a circular shape. I
It's a
don't know.
very teasery poster. They used to
Yeah,
do posters like this. It's actually kind of a throwback to when I was a kid, where they would have just like a symbol or logo
yeah.
or like something like a hint. It's called a teaser poster, so like which is
Mhm.
kind of cool.
Yeah, which fits this IP because Mobile Suit Gundam is old. Were you into Gundam? Are you interested in a Gundam movie? I mean, I imagine this is going to be like technically not kaiju, but I mean big ass robots fighting
I
against stuff.
I had friends that were really into it, and so like I did the whole like friend thing. It was like, oh, I like it too, but I wasn't into it.
Sure.
Like I just wanted
Yeah.
to watch the robots fight, but there was so much talking in that show and like very little fighting. Same thing with Dragon Ball Z. There's very little fighting, a lot of talking. And I was a kid, but like I remember I've seen the memes like shut up and get in the Gundam, shut up and get in the Gundam,
Right.
Genji, whatever his name is. I've seen the meme. I don't know. I
Yeah.
mean,
I mean
it's
the show 1979. Jesus, it
well
show's
like
older than I thought.
Gundam, not the first Gundam, but Gundam Wing is like the one that got really popular. Same thing with like Dragon Ball. You have Dragon Ball, and then you have Dragon Ball Z, and Z is the popular one. Z is the
Yeah.
big, huge one.
Well, this is. It looks like this is like the OG, like Mobile Suit Gundam, which was like the
Oh,
original animated series from way back in the day.
okay, sure. I mean, why not? I don't. I mean, big giant robots. I mean, like Pacific Rim is a great movie. You can watch one and two. Those are both
Yeah.
really. If you like Gundam, that's basic what it is. That's exactly
Yeah.
what it is. So if you want to watch those cool movies, just go watch those movies.
Yeah, this is a very good point. Here, I do want to read a little bit here from their press release. Bandai Namco Filmworks, which I didn't know that Bandai Namco Filmworks was a thing. I didn't know they had a company for that.
Will
A
be
member of the Bandai
established. It's
Namco
new. Yeah.
group, I see, and Legendary, which we know Legendary didn't wait. Didn't Legendary do Pacific Rim?
Yes, their
I forgot
production
that was
company.
them.
Yeah, to you can confuse.
Yeah.
There's distribution, then there's the
Mm.
production
I know.
companies.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know Legendary is.
No,
I
I'm
just didn't.
explaining to the
They
viewers. Yeah, yeah.
right. They're. It's just interesting that the Pacific Rim people are the also doing Mobile Suit Gundam. Have signed an agreement in January 2025. So again, this is like fresh off the press to co-finance Gundam, tentative name, referred to as Gundam, a Hollywood live-action film adaptation of the Mobile Suit Gundam series. Um, well, there you go. It seems like we're reaching like a new era of IP adaptations, Greg, where we're seeing a lot of like co-financing now. We're seeing like how like Nintendo just co-financed the Mario movie with Universal. It was like a
Yeah.
50-50 production. They didn't just like give the Mario license to another studio and was like, here, do your best. They're like, no, we're in there. Like, not like Bandai Namco's like, we're in there. Like, we're Bandai Namco Filmworks. We're making this movie with Legendary. We're not just giving them our IP and telling them to make a good movie out of it. I think it's interesting. Obviously, we've passed the eras of so many of these IPs getting like horrible, schlocky, cheesy adaptations that I guess a lot of these IP holders are a bit more precious about their franchises now.
Well, it's it's dipping the toe in the water, right? And like there's this an IP, that it has like Gundam is a known, like even if you don't know what it is, you've heard of it, right? It's one of those household things. People have heard of it, may not know what it's about or what it is, but they've heard it, right? So it's just definitely like they're trying, right? They're definitely gonna try. I mean, there's a lot of similarities, I guess, in Gundam and some other IPs like Power Rangers and all those like the Super Sentai things that they say, right? The Hope I say that right. Hope I'm not calling it something
I,
completely wrong on the internet and live television. It's called Super
I
Sentai.
don't know.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I never got into Gundam or really anything like it. I like the Transformers a little bit when I was a kid, which I guess you could say you don't get that without Gundam. Always liked the design of it. I know that it's huge in like Japan, right? Like they had, I believe it got taken down at some point in the last few years, but they had for a long time that like building-sized Gundam like figure or statue um,
No, it
over
was there.
there.
It's at a
So,
mall. I was just there like last year. I took pictures
oh,
with
it's
it.
still there.
Yeah, it's.
Uh,
Might have been another one there, but there was another. It was outside. It's 1-to-1 scale. It's huge, and it's a part of a mall.
mm, yeah, so that's like a huge IP over there. So, of course, anytime Hollywood can tap into that international market while also getting all the anime kids in the United States, they're gonna jump in. But this is like a massive franchise. Like just reading the stuff they say, in this press release. I knew Gundam was huge, but like bigger than I thought. Since its debut, there's been 25 animated series, 34
Hmm.
movies, 27 OVAs, then streaming content event stuff. Like massive franchise, generated over 900 million. I'm sure the movie will push it over that 1 billion mark. But I mean, you talk about just like the amount of material out there. It's as much as any franchise in entertainment. Probably far more content than we've gotten for even like Star Wars or Pokemon. Um, when you lump it all together. So
Yeah, I mean, it's done a ton of stuff, and that is a huge toy line, model line. They had a store dedicated just to Gundam models in Japan that I went to. It was small, but like that's all they had, which was kind of cool. Different
yeah.
scales, different levels. I did a Bandai Namco booth tour a couple years ago at Toy Fair. I'll do one again this year, and they show all their new
Oh
Gundam kits that are
yes.
coming out. I mean, like, and someone will correct me on the internet if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure like Gundam was one of the first, not the first, but one of the first Team Robot Giant animes. And without Gundam, you don't get Power Rangers, you don't get
Yeah.
Transformers, you don't
Well,
get, you know,
Bandai says in their press release that Mobile Suit Gundam established the genre of real robot
yeah,
anime.
there you go. Yeah, so it's
You know.
definitely, yeah, it's one of those pillars of like the first things
Uh-huh.
that may not always be the most popular version of it, but it definitely like sparked imagination for
Yeah.
years to come with people.
It
Um,
is one of those franchises where if you haven't watched Gundam, you've watched something that was inspired by it and didn't know it because it's kind of like that big of an influence, sort of thing. Um, which is always neat. And honestly, it's kind of crazy to think that we're just now getting like the big budget Hollywood live action movie. This feels like something that would have happened in like 2003 and would have been like really bad and then made like
anime was a
500 million dollars.
anime was a very slow. I mean, like you had the big AAA stuff because I was in the verge of the '90s. I was in that prime time before it was like mainstream, and then like you kind of got your mainstream ones trickled in, right? It started with Sailor Moon, then you got Dragon Ball Z, then you got Pokemon, which exploded it, and then after that you get your Naruto's. It started. It became more and more I guess what the word is like acceptable, or it became more and more available in the states as like it started to grow. It's been a long process for it to become like its thing. Like I remember because it was only the mainstream ones that I knew about when I was in high school, middle school, and junior high. And then obviously when I graduated college, and all the other ones come out, and they will always have the mainstream ones. But we're seeing these live action anime adaptations now, Cowboy Bebop and One Piece Pirate. And I think that like we talk about there's trends in Hollywood all the time. I feel like the next logical trend is anime adaptations because why not? I mean, like you have all this IP, it's been around for decades. Let's give it a shot, And who knows? If it does well, you'll see more anime adaptations. If it does worse, you won't. And that's basically the bottom line.
Right. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they handle it, man, because I know video game adaptations for a long time had the stigma of just being bad always, no matter what. But I would argue that anime is even worse. Now, there have been less anime adaptations, but the ones we get, I mean, people hate. You look at like Dragon Ball Evolution or the Death Note movie, and people just cannot. It's not even like, oh, these are bad. Like, they are like offensive to people who love the original animated stuff. So they've got a ways to go. I mean, don't get me wrong. There've been some exceptions. I know One Piece got a season 2 on Netflix. People like that one a good bit, but it feels like more often than not, people are like disgusted with a lot of the live action anime stuff, especially when it's like American
Oh, Death Note
um
too. Yeah, I think they mentioned Death Note as well. Yeah.
focus. Yeah, I mentioned Death Note on Netflix. Yeah, people hated that shit. So they've got a large hump to get over to win over the anime crowd when it comes to like getting excited about live action stuff. But anything's possible. Anything is certainly possible. Um, and yeah, they say here they're gonna. This is very Nintendo's like statement. I just want to say, like this whole like press release the Bandai put out. This is very Nintendo, where they're like, "Hey, this is Furukawa. I have spoken to this gentleman from Universal Pictures. We are planning to release the like it is very like it feels like we're being presented this in like a boardroom. I don't hate it. It's just interesting for them to do. In my experience, I don't remember Bandai doing something like this before. But even just like on April 1st, 2025, a North American subsidiary, Bandai Namco Filmworks, will be established for the production of Gundam. We plan to announce details steadily as they become finalized. This is like a very carefully articulated and orchestrated announcement. This was not just like the president of Bandai Namco having like the Hollywood Reporter, Variety, or Deadline just put out the press release and let people get hyped about it. They were like, they want to control every second, every detail of the communication about this movie from the moment we find out it exists until it comes out.
Sidebar to that, like it's because I think it's because the way Japan does business is a little bit different than the U.S. Like just the way they handle
Sure.
things, because it's a different country, right? Different rules, different mindset. But on the franchise, they talk about one of the executive producers for the studio. We talked about that show, The Franchise, last week. he went to Comic-Con, and one of the jokes is like he made like 10 announcements that weren't planned, so now they have to do all this shit. He was like, "Yeah, we're gonna do a crossover. Woo, it's hype, yeah, yeah." With screaming, he's like, "You made 20 promises. You made all these promises about crossovers in movies. Now,
You made 20
now,
promises.
now we're in trouble." And that's the thing, like it's riding that wave. I think like based on just we cover so much Nintendo, right? I'm gonna use this as an example. Like I feel like Japan businesses, most, not all, but most, they go slower. It's a slower pace, and that could be because they're working with American businesses and trying to get that together. But they move at a slower pace than
Right.
like America does. Like America, like when something's hot, you're gonna get it every 2 years for like 10 years until people are sick of it, and then they'll throw it in the garbage. Like Freddy versus Jason, like the Freddy movies, right? That's they'll
Sure.
keep making it until like everyone's like, "We're done," and then they'll reboot it 10 years
I
later.
mean,
Yeah.
specifically to the Nintendo comparison, right?
Mm.
I'm getting a little off topic here, but even with their games, there was a report a couple years ago, Greg. I don't know if you remember that, like, it was a big deal when like Nintendo let Ubisoft make the Mario Rabbids game because it's like Nintendo never lets anyone touch
Yes.
their IP, and they're like
Yes.
super careful about their collaborations. And then they made the second one, and it was like still good, but it just didn't like wasn't as big of a deal that time. Do you remember that report that came out that was like Nintendo told Ubisoft behind the scenes to like hold on to doing a second one. Be like wait, like don't like don't put a bunch of like sequels on the same platform for like the one game. Like maybe space them out and make it feel a bit more like unique or not. And Ubisoft did it anyway, and then it like undersold. And it's like they have a philosophy about this stuff that they are very particular about. They know what they're doing, and it has worked tremendously for them. So yeah, it's not surprising that this goes into film as well. So this is interesting to see. I mean, kaiju big robot stuff makes a lot of money, and it makes a shit ton of money when you do it well, right? I mean, we don't love the last, Godzilla X Kong, whatever the hell, but that movie made hundreds of millions of dollars, and it wasn't even really good by most metrics. So if this comes out and people are like, holy shit, this is actually like loyal to the source material. It's good, we got great callbacks to the anime. The fans feel honored, blah blah blah, whatever you want to say. This thing could be huge. It could very easily be a new blockbuster franchise for Legendary, and Bandai Namco Filmworks. So, as someone who doesn't care much about that IP, I'm curious to see how it turns out. It's interesting. Um, I'll be looking out for more information on that. Oh, there you go. Is that the
That,
one you saw?
that's the giant Gundam outside. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet. Why do we do this? Like, I get that Japan has Gundam and Godzilla and like anime and stuff. America, we've created so many cool on-screen characters and creatures. Why don't we have a big ass King Kong that's just like 30 feet tall, standing in front of like a random like mall in New York City or something?
Because Donovan, one, space is expensive, and two, we got to spend money on things like the Sphere in Vegas instead. Instead.
But Vegas would be the perfect place for that, right? I mean, we have so many cool iconic movie monsters, television characters. I feel like we don't do it as much as we should. There are only a few examples I can think of, right? Like in Philadelphia, I forget where it is, but they have like the Rocky statue, and it's like we have a statue for like a movie character who doesn't exist in real life, and
Yeah.
I love it so much because I'm like, it's rare that something like that happens. And then in L.A., like the AMC Burbank 16, they've got like the Batman statue outside the movie theater. We need more shit like that, man. We have so many American characters.
They do it in
Um,
Vegas. They did like a commission for like different superheroes in Vegas, and Batman's in Las
okay,
Vegas. But like that's like the worst place for Batman to be.
yeah.
Like I feel like there's so
Mhm.
much corruption
I
there.
mean, I'll I'll tip our hand. We're gonna talk about like the new Jurassic World movie soon. Jurassic Park, one of the greatest blockbusters in the history of cinema, an American creation. Why don't we have a big ass life size T Rex like statue in the middle of like California somewhere? Like we should just have that should just be a thing in like San Diego. You know, earnings calls in like another 2 hours. But we should, we should have more of that stuff here, but we don't because we're just not fun. But you're right, it is space because that would be like rent. Or I'm sure somebody's like, we could put a McDonald's there if we
Well,
did
yeah, and
a
like and malls,
dinosaur.
and like you want to put it in like a theme park, or you want to put it in like a public location or a mall, and like that's just to get business there. But our malls are dying, so at least out here they are. Yeah, I know,
Yeah,
but that's
you'd
a
put
good
a
idea. They
T-Rex.
should. I mean, it
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
They should do it.
They